Hey, welcome back to Dino Talk. I'm Bobby Dino. Thank you for joining. Today's topic is what they do. You had all these different people that were in there, right? And some of the stories that you'd hear about why they were there were friggin' wild. Now, here's the thing about prison is everybody's got a story for how they were shafted somehow. Everybody's got this story about how they were wronged or the cops got it wrong or whichever. But the reality is that most everybody's guilty. Most everybody did it. They deserve to be right where they're at. Upon a little bit of investigation, you see like, oh yeah, you're guilty as a motherfucker. You have these dudes that were constantly making up excuses about why they shouldn't have been there, but dudes deserve to be there. Now, does that mean that some people didn't get shafted? No, man. Some people got railroaded. Okay, some people, there were some legit mishandlings by the police or by the prosecution or whatever, but ultimately, most everyone, they belonged right where they were at. Now, if I were to guess a percentage that wasn't guilty, it'd probably be like 0.5%. Okay, I mean the actual stories of somebody not doing something but winding up there were very rare. Even though everyone would try and convince you like they shouldn't have been there for some reason, the actual cases of that were rare. Now, there was this one guy, okay, it was an older gentleman. I actually wrote a little bit about this, but this guy had gone in during the 80s, okay, and he had the paperwork and the story, like he had done his research, that he was this bank robber, right? So his paperwork, when they checked his paperwork, it said he had robbed banks. This dude used to tell stories about different jobs he pulled. I mean, he played it to the hilt, right? Well, then comes the thing, oh, they're going back, they're looking over my case, they mismanaged some evidence, blah, 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 blah. And he goes to court, goes a few times, this happens over the course of a few months or whatever. And his conviction gets overturned on something, he ends up getting out. Guy'd been in like 22 years, right? Well, one day I'm reading Rolling Stone. I had a couple different magazine subscriptions in there, and Rolling Stone was one of them. And there's a big 10-page write-up on this crooked DA that was, I believe it was Kern County, which is a county in California. And this dude, this old man, was part of this guy's net. So this is what had happened, is this old man was part of this group. He was a young man at the time that was part of this group that was making drugs, okay? But this DA kept trying to bust him. And it was crazy because this DA, he'd put on a jacket and go on drug raids with the cops. Like he thought he was like some fucking superhero or something, right? So this DA kept trying to bust this drug group, couldn't get the stuff on them. They were being too slick for the cops or whatever. So what happened? The investigators got their kids to say that these people were molesting them. Okay, so that's right. This old man, he didn't go for bank robbery. He went for being a molester. Thing was, he didn't do it. So what happens is 20 years later, these kids that are now adults, they all feel like shit because they were told to lie by these investigators about what had happened, when in reality, none of that happened. So they started coming forward one by one. A lot of these kids had fucked up lives because they grew up, just not feeling good about themselves. And at first, the district attorneys, because the way they are is once they got a conviction, they don't want to do nothing to give that up. That's a win for them. But as the wheels of justice kept turning, it came out like, oh, okay, they're dirty as a mofo. And this guy ended up getting out. Now, he did get, I believe, something around 2.1 or $2.2 million for 21 years, 22 years, which I mean, I don't know, man, sounds like a lot, but that's a long time to be locked down. Like that dude, he came out essentially a stranger to all his people, that's a bummer. That's a bummer. And what would have happened if it got found out while he was in there, like, hey, this guy's not here for bank robbery. This guy's here for being a child molester. Well, let me tell you what would have happened. Somebody would have killed his ass. At the very least, they would have rearranged him in a way that would have been permanent. So, I mean, this was this dude's life on the line because some DA couldn't get a conviction for some drugs. So did it happen sometimes? Yeah, sometimes it happened. But I mean, the percentage was just tiny. But however, there were some cases that I heard about and met the people that it was just a bummer, just something that went wrong. A common one, and by common, I mean, there's probably like 4 or 5 people that I met, but it was more of a common case of just, gosh, what a bummer, was young dudes. They'd be at some bar or be somewhere, right? And someone would say something about their girl, or they'd disrespect them or whatever. And so they'd go out in the parking lot and they'd go and fight, right? And the guy would hit the other guy and he'd drop dead. Or when he fell down, he'd hit his head and be dead, right? He wasn't planning on murdering that dude. They were going out there to sling him, but dude's dead. And in California, right, you're getting a 2nd-degree murder charge for that, because they're going to say, hey, you knew when you were going out there, going to fight, that this is what was that this was a possibility. You were going to hurt that dude, cause him damage, whatever. He died, your fault. 2nd-degree murder. And these guys would have life sentences. They'd go in at like 18, 19 years old. I met them, they're in their 30s, and it's just like, geez, man, one bad mistake, they, no prior record, no nothing. And these dudes getting some fisticuffs, and now they're doing life for it, which is why I always tell people, fighting, street fighting, all that different stuff, it's not worth it. You don't know what's going to happen. You hit someone the wrong way, they could die. If you get hit the wrong way, you could die. So, I mean, there's all types of things that can happen in a situation like that. I knew this other guy, his name was Chris, and this one was kind of a bummer too. He was being carjacked, right? This guy used to work for oh God, I can't remember the name of the place. They're a rocket, they do rocket propulsion and stuff, and I believe it was out of the Mojave Desert where they do it. I want to say it's JPL or something like that, but has to do with rockets, right? This guy had a good job, worked at one of those places, or worked at that place, and anyways, he had a nice car, and a couple dudes tried to carjack him. Well, he had a gun in his car, so when those dudes tried to carjack him, he shot one, bow, right? Killed the one that he shot. The other guy was still there. He kept shooting, boom, 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 right? Well, the guy that he shot first had the gun, okay? The other guy that was with him didn't have a gun, okay? Because that guy didn't have a gun, and then was able to go to court and say, oh, I was throwing my hands up and saying, no, 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 and he shot me anyway, and got to testify. They just see 2 dead kids, or, well, 1 dead kid, 1 wounded kid, and then it becomes his word against this other guy's word. He ended up pleading out to a manslaughter, and I believe got 8 years. So, I mean, gnarly stuff like that happens, I had a bunkie, and this guy ended up coming for 5 years, and the reason being was his sister had a young kid, a young girl, and apparently the sister's boyfriend was molesting the girl. So this guy finds out about it and says, fuck that shit, and he went over to dude's house, took the law into his own hands, and beat the dude up on his right in front of his house, just right there on his lawn, just kicked the dude's ass, right? Well, as much as we would love for that to be legal, it's not, and he ended up having to do a 5-year prison sentence for the assault. There's another guy, didn't have a record, didn't have nothing. Crazy too, because he's kind of like a rich dude from Orange County, to where he didn't come from the streets. He didn't have that kind of smarts and that lingo, and he found himself in prison. I actually kept in touch with that dude afterwards. He's one of the only guys I did. And I went to his wedding when I got out. He had gotten out a little bit before me, and he got married right there on Laguna Beach. Had string quartet playing. I mean, it was beautiful, And the thing is that this dude for years was my bunkie inside the joint in one of the dirtiest, nastiest friggin' places on earth. And here he was getting married to, you know, some beautiful woman on a beautiful setting. And, you know, so that was just a bad chapter of his life, right? And the thing with the joint too, with prison, is that even if you go in innocent, right, it'll make you guilty. And what I mean by that is that just to maintain a sense of safety or a sense of, you know, getting by, you got to break rules. If you follow the rules while you're in there, you can get hurt by another inmate because you following the rules may inadvertently give them up. You know, you can not have anything. It's like it changes you. It makes people, people call it institutionalized, but it makes people break the rules just so they can get by and not be singled out. You know, and some of them are minor infractions. You might have, let's say, an extra issue of state clothing, or, oh, you got extra rolls of toilet paper and soap, you know, something dumb. But I mean, some of them could be major laws. I mean, now you've got to get in a fight. Even if somebody's attacking you and you get in a fight, if you win, you're going to get in trouble, right? They aren't going to hear. They're not trying to hear about, oh, I was just defending myself. They're just going to see two dudes fighting, and that's it. Or let's say some dude calls you a punk in front of the whole crowd of dudes, right? He may not have thrown the first punch, but by him saying that, if you don't do anything, you're just going to fucking become a victim. You'll be victimized in there by everyone. As soon as they hear, oh, this dude lets people call him a punk or a bitch, they'll come right in front of you and start taking stuff out of your locker. Fuck you, punk. You know, and you'll just sink right down to the bottom of the totem pole. So, I mean, assault, conspiracies, obstruction, you know, then you get questioned by the cops. What's this? What's that? Or you're hiding something, because if you do give up evidence or you do snitch, you're going to get in even more trouble. So it's like you gotta, it's really kind of a crappy situation because you gotta break the rules just to get by. So ultimately, the best thing is to live clean and don't associate with bad guys outside. Okay? Be careful of your associations. Think things through, because you may not even realize what you're doing or what you're about to do, and it may break some kind of law, or somebody might get hurt, and then you're going to end up in the joint. You got to not do that. You got to be aware of what you're doing, be in control of your emotions and of your functions, and stay the hell out of prison. Before we go, I have a book that I just wrote. It's called Thinking Tough. It's the secrets, hacks, techniques that I used, that I learned in prison to make my life on the outside livable, to make money. You know, I know that there's people that maybe they're kind of wondering what the next step is for them to make it. They have problems with focus. They see everybody else surpassing them, and they don't know what the next step is for them to make something of themselves. These are techniques that are legal, okay, no breaking laws, that you can use to get yourself to that next place, to become a winner. Look for the link in the bio and you can check it out. I'm Bobby Dino. Thank you for joining, and please, until next time, stay safe out there.